The phone rang 24 times in 1 hour. I know because my daughter counted, and at first she thought it was funny, like the phone had turned into a toy with terrible manners. I was 270 miles from home, sitting on a faded beach blanket on Bayport Island, watching my son dig a tunnel he swore would reach the other side of the world. My mother was calling from a resort parking lot in Seabrook Point. My sister was beside her, shouting at a desk clerk who would not hand over keys for rooms they had not paid for. I did not know that part yet. All I knew was the salt air, my kids laughing, and the strange relief of choosing them over my family's demands for the first time in 5 years. But those calls were only the crash at the end. The whole thing had been rolling downhill for months. Welcome back to the Untold Truths. My name is Hannah Miller. I was 35 then, a bookkeeper in a small town outside Charlotte, raising 2 kids and counting every dollar because money, unlike certain relatives, at least admits when it is gone. This is the story of how my sister talked my mother into cutting me and my children out of the family beach trip, then tried to pay for that trip with a card she thought still gave her access to my savings. I worked for Dr. Harper Lane at a veterinary clinic on Highway 18, just past the Valero station. I made $52,000 a year. Not a fortune, not starvation. I reconciled supplier bills, ran payroll, tracked medication inventory, and kept the accounts clean enough that Dr. Lane could focus on angry cats, limping dogs, and people who waited 3 weeks before admitting their pet had eaten a sock. I was good at the work. Numbers are simple. They do not sulk at Thanksgiving. They do not ask for loans and call it love. My apartment was 10 minutes from the clinic, 13 from Grace's elementary school, and about 18 from Owen's daycare if the light on Willow Avenue behaved itself. Grace was 9. Owen was 6. Their father had left when Owen was still in diapers, and that is not a chapter worth reopening. Every morning I was up by 5:20. 2 lunches, almond butter and banana for Grace, ham and cheese for Owen because he treated anything with seeds like a personal attack. Drop-offs, work by 7:40, pick up from aftercare at 5:20, dinner, baths, homework, 1 more cup of water, 1 more story, lights out, repeat. I had a budget spreadsheet with 16 columns. I bought groceries around sales. I filled the car on Wednesdays because the Gulf station took 7 cents off per gallon. I moved $175 every month into a vacation account and pretended the account did not exist. I was careful because I had to be. In my family, careful was not seen as responsible. It was seen as selfish. People do not always hate you for having money. Sometimes they hate you for not letting them decide what you should do with it. My father understood that. He was the only one who did. 5 years earlier, my dad was lying in a hospital bed at Mercy Ridge Medical Center with tubes taped to both arms and a kidney that had finally quit after years of warnings. Frank Miller had been a plumber for 42 years. He was 64 and looked older, with hands like unfinished lumber and shoulders permanently shaped by crawl spaces. I was 30. My sister Corinne Brooks was 36. We stood on opposite sides of his bed like 2 versions of the same family that had never learned to speak the same language. Dad looked at me, not Corinne. "Hannah, I need you to handle things." He meant the money, Mom's bills, the house, the insurance, all of it. From under his pillow, he pulled a yellow envelope. A nurse had brought it in from his pickup. Inside were the life insurance papers, my mother's banking information, and a handwritten list of monthly bills. "Keep your mama's lights on," he said. "That's what I'm asking." I took the envelope. My hands shook, his did not. Corinne said nothing until we got into the elevator. She stared at the metal doors, pale and stiff, then took out her phone. Mine buzzed before I reached the parking garage. "Dad always trusted you more. Enjoy the crown." I sat in my car for almost half an hour after that. I had expected the cruelty, which is a depressing thing to say about your own sister, but family often turns disappointment into a hobby. What I had not expected was the weight of knowing Dad had chosen me because he knew exactly who Corinne was with money. She had bounced checks to the power company twice in 6 months. She had borrowed $2,000, $700 from his retirement money and never repaid him. He loved her. He just would not leave her alone with a checkbook unless the checkbook had already been emptied. Dad died 11 weeks later on a wet Thursday in November. The rain came down so hard that the funeral home parking lot flooded near the curb. The life insurance paid $92,000. I sat at my kitchen table with a calculator, coffee I never drank, and a legal pad covered in columns. Hospital debt, $34,500. Repairs to Mom's roof where the leak had ruined the bathroom floor, $9,100. A new water heater because the old one was apparently held together by rust, tape, and prayer, $2,750. After everything, there was $25,800 left. I put $24,000 into an emergency savings account in Mom's name. Untouched. Safe. The rest covered funeral flowers and the small reception afterward, because Couldnt had promised she would arrange food, then arrived with nothing but lipstick and excuses. After that, I set up a $325 transfer from my checking account to Mom's account on the first of every month. It covered the gap between her Social Security and real life, because $1,520 a month sounds manageable only to people who have never bought prescriptions. Couldnt gave nothing. "I have my own household," she said. She did. She had 2 kids, a house with a pool, and a leased Acura SUV she liked to park sideways in Mom's driveway so everyone could admire the interest rate. But what Couldnt really had was leverage. Her children, Chloe and Noah, were Mom's youngest grandchildren, and Couldnt spent access to them like currency. "If you keep inviting Hannah every weekend, don't expect me to bring the kids by," she told Mom. She said it calmly, like announcing rain. Mom stopped inviting me on weekends. I found out when Grace asked why Grandma only wanted to see her on Wednesdays. I did not have a good answer. So I changed the schedule, swallowed the insult, and kept sending the $325. This is how foolishness gets dressed up as peace. Someone behaves badly, and everyone else rearranges their lives around the mess. Every summer since I was 10, the Miller family went to the coast. Pelican Key, North Carolina. Same gray cottages. Same screened porches. Same sand that appeared in shoes months later like a curse with excellent persistence. Dad loaded the cooler before sunrise. Mom packed sunscreen like she was supplying an army. Couldnt and I fought over the front seat for 40 minutes, then fell asleep against opposite windows. It was the one week a year money did not become a fight, because Dad paid for it before anyone could ruin it. After he died, that tradition probably should have ended. But I could not let it. Grace loved tide pools. Owen had gone on his first trip before he could walk and tried to eat a fistful of sand with the confidence of a food critic. So I kept booking the rooms, planning groceries, packing the car, and paying most of the bill. The year before everything blew up, I reserved 2 rooms at Sandpiper Cabins on Pelican Key for 4 nights. The total was $2,360. I paid $1,910. Couldnt sent me $450 through a payment app 9 weeks late after I asked 4 separate times. Mom paid nothing. I told myself it was for the kids. That is what people say when they are funding adults who know exactly how to avoid saying thank you. By early spring that next year, my travel account had $2,850 in it. $175 a month, automatic transfer untouched. It was meant for the beach, just not the beach my sister had in mind. 3 months before summer, on a damp Friday in March, Brandon Reed stood in Couldnt's driveway during the kid handoff. Brandon was 41, sold commercial lighting, drove a black Silverado with a dented bumper, and had been divorced from Couldnt for almost 3 years. They hated each other in the efficient modern way, mostly through text messages and custody calendar complaints. Chloe climbed out of his truck first. Noah followed with a backpack dragging behind him. Brandon leaned against the tailgate and said, "You know Hannah turned me down for that $6,000, right?" He had asked me the previous fall. He wanted to start a weekend business doing garage floor coatings. I had said no once, politely and clearly, which in my family made me a villain with a spreadsheet. Karen folded her arms. She turned you down because she is cheap, always has been. Brandon looked toward the house. Your mom still has Hannah's card. Karen did not answer right away. Book the trip, he said. Use the card. Hannah has been sitting on your dad's money for years like it belongs to her. Karen hesitated. I learned later it was about 4 seconds. 4 seconds is not much, but apparently it was all the conscience she had left. She does owe us, Karen said. I was at home that night helping Grace with fractions. I had no idea my sister was making a plan with my name attached to the receipt. I would not learn the details for weeks. By then, the fuse was already lit. Chloe's 11th birthday was in April at Mom's house. The redbuds were blooming, and Evelyn had taped a glittery banner across the porch that said Happy Birthday, Chloe. I brought 30 cupcakes from a bakery on Cedar Street, chocolate with vanilla frosting because Chloe had loved that flavor since she was little. Grace carried the box like it contained museum glass. Owen carried the gift bag with a watercolor kit inside. For the first hour, it was ordinary. Kids in the yard. Mom turning hot dogs on the grill. Ruth Coleman from church sitting on the porch with iced tea, watching the children race around the oak tree. Then Karen pulled me into the kitchen. She closed the door halfway, leaned against the counter, and crossed her arms. That was Karen's pose when she had already made a decision and wanted to call it a conversation. I need to tell you about the summer trip, she said. I waited. We are going to Seabrook Point this year. Me, Mom, Chloe, and Noah. I waited again. Your kids aren't coming. Mine said they don't want them there. The words came out flat, rehearsed, almost bored. I looked past her into the living room. Mom stood near the sofa, holding a debit card between 2 fingers. My debit card. The emergency card I had left with her 2 years earlier in case she needed medicine, groceries, or gas to get to a doctor. Why do you have my card, Mom? Evelyn looked at Karen first, then at me. Karen said she needed it for the booking. Ruth Coleman was in the living room. She saw the whole thing. She saw Karen's mouth tighten, saw Mom clutch the card, saw me look at both of them and understand the shape of the plan. I nodded once. Keep it, I said. Then I called my children, picked up the cupcake box, and left. The drive home took 12 minutes. Grace sat behind me silent. Owen hummed some cartoon song under his breath. 2 streets from our apartment, Grace asked, Why did we leave so fast? I looked at her in the mirror. 9 years old, brown eyes steady, old enough to know something had happened and hopeful enough to still believe adults had a decent reason. Sometimes grown-ups need space, sweetheart. She accepted it because children often accept the first answer you hand them. Then they store it somewhere deep, and later you have to explain the truth after it has grown teeth. I got them inside, turned on a movie, and went to my bedroom with my phone. I opened my banking app. A month earlier, I had noticed a $425 withdrawal from my checking account. I called Mom. She said she had used the wrong card at the pharmacy and promised to pay it back. I checked further. 3 more charges over the previous 2 months. $92 at a gas station, $138 at a store I did not use, and $71 at a diner I had never visited. That was 2 weeks before Chloe's party. The next morning, I called the bank and asked to remove Mom as an authorized user. The woman on the phone told me they needed both parties present or a notarized written request, then 7 to 10 business days. The banking system, a shining monument to letting nonsense marinate. So instead, I went to a different credit union on Hawthorne Road, across from a tire shop. I opened a new checking account and a new savings account. I transferred everything. $2,850 from vacation savings. $1,620 from checking. The old account sat there with $18.47 and a debit card in my mother's purse. I told no one. Here is the thing about family and money. When someone holds your card like proof that you belong to them, they are not protecting you. They are keeping the leash short. 2 weeks later, we had Sunday dinner at Mom's. Fried chicken, canned green beans, and rolls from a tube. Karen was in one of those moods where she had gotten what she wanted and needed an audience for it. Before the plates were cleared, she pulled out her phone. "Look at this." She turned the screen toward Mom. A resort in Seabrook Point. White balconies, a bright blue pool, palm trees standing too perfectly, like someone had arranged them to make poorer people feel ashamed. 4 nights, ocean view, children's program included, $3,480 total. She swiped through photos. There was a seafood buffet, a sunset boat tour, and a restaurant where the appetizers cost what I usually spend on 2 bags of groceries. Mom smiled. "That looks lovely, honey." Karen set the phone down and looked across the table at me. "You couldn't afford it anyway." She laughed through her nose. Owen sat next to me with his fork stuck in mashed potatoes. He looked up. "Are we going to the beach too, Mom?" The table fell quiet. Grace stared at her plate. Mom looked at her hands. Karen took a sip of tea as if my son had not just been handed a rejection notice at a dining table. I squeezed Owen's shoulder. "We'll have our own adventure." He nodded and went back to his potatoes. I did not give Karen the argument she wanted. I washed dishes, dried them, stacked them in Mom's cabinet exactly how she liked them. Big plates on the bottom, small plates on top. Then I took my kids home. At a red light on Sycamore Street, I typed family beach rooms near Port Ashland into my phone. That night at 11:45, Grace and Owen were asleep and I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and coffee gone cold. Bayport Island was 25 minutes east of Port Ashland. I had never been there, but the photos looked like a place Dad would have liked. Not fancy, not polished. Just wooden porches, dunes, weathered fences, and the ocean doing what the ocean does without charging extra for attitude. Harbor View Lodge had a room for the last week of June. $96 a night. They called it an ocean view, which meant you could see a narrow strip of water between 2 buildings if you leaned slightly to the left and believed in yourself. That was enough. 4 nights, $384. Gas, roughly $210. Food for 3 people for 4 days, mostly cooked in the tiny kitchenette, $340. Activities: kayak rental, ice cream, maybe a dolphin tour if Owen negotiated hard enough, $180. Total, $1,114. My new account had $2,850 in it. I booked the room. The confirmation email arrived almost immediately. I screenshotted it, saved it in a folder called Summer, and wrote one word on a sticky note: beach. I stuck it to the fridge. No date, no place, no details. Information in my family traveled faster than truth and usually arrived in worse condition. Grace found the note the next morning while I poured cereal. "Beach, are we going?" I smiled for the first real time in weeks. "It's a surprise." I did not learn the full shape of Karen's plan until after it collapsed. People talk. Brandon talked to a friend at a gym. The friend's wife volunteered with Ruth at the church office. Ruth told me 2 months later over lemonade on her porch, with no reason to lie and every reason to be tired of watching fools treat theft like strategy. Karen booked Harborfront Dune Suites in Seabrook Point in early April. 2 adjoining rooms. Total cost, $3,480. She paid a $900 deposit on her own credit card. The remaining $2,580 was due 3 days before check-in. She had no intention of paying it. "Hannah's card will cover the rest," she told Mom. "She owes this family for acting like Dad's money made her special." Mom hesitated. I can picture it too clearly, her lips pressed together, her eyes on the floor, wanting to object but more afraid of Karen's anger than her own conscience. "Are you sure that's fair?" Mom asked. Karen's answer was steady. "She left the card with you. That's permission." It was not permission. Leaving an emergency debit card with your widowed mother is not a blank check for a coastal resort. But Karen had decided what the card meant, and Mom had decided not to fight. Brandon texted Karen that evening. "Smart. She won't know until it's paid." Karen sent back a checkmark emoji. $2,580 due 3 days before check-in. Charged to a debit card connected to an account with $18.47 in it. They did not know that yet. I did. May was hectic at the clinic. Allergy season had every dog in the county scratching itself bald, and Dr. Lane was booked solid through June. I liked being busy. Busy made the day move. Busy kept my hands occupied and my phone ignored. One afternoon, I was reconciling invoices for flea medication when Dr. Lane leaned against my doorframe. She was 54, silver-haired, calm in the way only someone who has spent decades talking people through emergencies can be calm. "You seem lighter," she said. I looked up from my spreadsheet. "Just ready for summer." She nodded and went back to exam room 3. Lighter was the right word. I felt like I had put down a bag I had been carrying so long I had mistaken it for part of my body. At 5:20, I picked the kids up from aftercare. Grace climbed in first. Owen followed, talking about a beetle he had found near the playground. 3 blocks from home, Grace went quiet. Grace's silence has weather in it. It means something is coming. "Chloe said we can't go on the trip because we're not real family." I stopped at the sign on Oak Street and held the brake a second too long. "Who told Chloe that?" Grace picked at her backpack strap. "Aunt Karen." I gripped the steering wheel. 4 seconds. I counted them by the turn signal clicking. "Grace, you and Owen are my family, the most real family I have, and we are going on our own trip." Owen popped up from the back seat. "With dolphins?" I looked at him in the mirror. "Maybe with dolphins." What Karen said to her daughter about mine was the line: you cross it and there is no polite path back. There is only the honest one. That night, after stories, teeth brushing, and Owen's second request for water, I sat on the couch and opened my banking app. The recurring payment to Mom's account was still there. $325. First of every month, 5 years of transfers. Roughly $19,500. I had kept Mom's utilities paid, prescriptions filled, and pantry stocked while Karen drove a leased SUV and told my daughter she was not real family. I pressed cancel. A pop-up asked if I was sure. Finally, a machine asking a useful question. I pressed confirm. My hands were steady. Mom had $1,520 a month in Social Security and the $24,000 emergency account from Dad's insurance. She would not be comfortable in the way she had been with my money cushioning everything, but she would be fine. Karen lived 11 minutes away. Karen could buy groceries for once. I wrote Mom an email. "Mom, I have changed my finances. The monthly transfer will not continue. I love you." I sent it at 9:18 p.m. Mom called at 9:21. "What am I supposed to do?" she asked, voice already halfway between panic and accusation. "You have savings, Mom. Karen is close. Karen has bills." "So do I." Silence filled the line. "I can't believe you would do this to me." "I'm not doing anything to you. I'm just not doing it for you anymore." She hung up. 20 minutes later, Karen texted, "What did you do? Mom is crying." I read it, set the phone screen down on the counter, washed the dishes, folded towels, and slept better than I had in months. A week before our trip, I pulled summer clothes from the hall closet. Grace had outgrown her shorts. Owen's swim trunks still fit, but barely. On the top shelf, behind winter hats and a bin of ornaments, I found an old boot box, dusty and brown, with Iron Creek printed on the lid. Dad's work boot brand. Inside were his union card, a faded photo of him and Mom at Pelican Key in 1990, a receipt for pipe fittings, and a white envelope with my name written in block letters. HANNAH. I had forgotten it existed. He had tucked it into the envelope with the insurance papers at the hospital. Back then, I had been too raw to open it. After that, too busy. Then too tired. I sat on the closet floor and tore the flap. One sheet of lined paper. Dad's handwriting filled half the page. "Hannah, you are the one who keeps her word. Don't let anybody turn your kindness into a spare key for your wallet. If helping them starts hurting you and your kids, stop. You kept the lights on long enough. Take those babies to the beach. Dad." 6 sentences. No speech. No guilt. Just a plumber who understood his daughters and loved them differently because they were different. I folded the letter along its creases and slipped it behind my driver's license in my wallet. The closet smelled like dust and old leather. I sat there for a minute, breathing. Then I got up and packed. On Tuesday evening, I took the kids to Value Mart. Owen rode in the cart. Grace walked beside me, too old for the cart but apparently still young enough to hang off the side when she thought I was not looking. I had $45 set aside for beach extras. Owen found shark goggles immediately. Gray rubber, little molded teeth around the lenses. $6.49. Non-negotiable according to the tiny negotiator. Grace took longer. She chose a blue one-piece with little white shells on the straps. $16. I checked the seams. Solid. That one. 2 pairs of flip-flops, spray sunscreen, and a mesh beach bag from clearance. Total, $39.82. Under budget by $5.18, which I took as proof that miracles are usually small and fluorescent lit. At home, I put everything in a duffel and tucked it behind winter coats. Not hidden exactly, just not visible. My family had a habit of dropping by unannounced. Mom with leftovers, Karen with a demand. I did not need questions from people who treated answers like obstacles. As I zipped the bag, Karen's words replayed in my head. Your kids aren't coming. Mine don't want them there. I stood in the closet and let the words be exactly what they were. Not a verdict. Just cruelty from someone who mistook control for importance. From the bathroom came Grace's laugh. She had found Owen's shark goggles and was wearing them in the mirror, puffing out her cheeks. Owen was trying to snatch them back, furious and giggling at the same time. My kids were coming, just not where Karen thought. 1 week before check-in, the family group text was still active. Me, Karen, and Mom. Karen had not removed me, either from laziness or the more common family disease, wanting an audience. My phone buzzed during lunch at the clinic. Karen sent a photo of the resort pool glowing turquoise at night. Then another of a balcony view. Then a screenshot of a seafood restaurant where the cheapest appetizer was $31. Then she wrote, Mom, I booked the sunset dinner cruise too, $520. It will go on the same card. The same card. My old card. I read it twice because optimism is how you miss traps. Then I checked the old account. $18.47. The same $18.47 that had been sitting there since March. Karen was about to charge a $520 dinner cruise to an account that could not buy a full tank of gas. I closed the app and took a bite of my sandwich, turkey on wheat. The Tuesday classic, because apparently my life had a theme of repetition and underseason poultry. I did not reply. I did not warn her. Some people only learn from the declined screen. At 2:10, Dr. Lane passed my desk on her way to surgery. A retriever had swallowed a sock. She paused. You are smiling at your phone, good news? Something like that. She raised an eyebrow and kept walking. I put my phone in the drawer and went back to payroll. Column D was off. I found the mistake in 7 minutes. Numbers I could fix. Family, not so much. Brandon picked up Chloe and Noah that Friday evening. Chloe ran down the driveway before the truck had fully stopped. Dad, we're going to Seabrook Point. She was 11 and already had Karen's volume. Brandon lifted her onto the tailgate for a second, then set her down. Noah came out quieter, carrying a stuffed dinosaur he was probably too old for and not nearly old enough to lose. Once the kids went upstairs for overnight bags, Brandon leaned against the porch railing. Karen stood in the doorway, arms crossed. You sure Hannah's card has enough? He asked. Karen did not blink. She puts money away every month, at least $2,500 by now. Brandon moved his lips doing math, which looked painful for everyone involved. And your mom has the card? Karen nodded. Hannah told her to keep it. Brandon grinned, the grin of a man who thinks clever and illegal are close cousins. Then it's basically handled. The kids came back down. Brandon loaded them into the truck and drove off. Karen stood in the doorway until the tail lights disappeared. I heard this part months later from someone who heard it from Brandon at a cookout, but one detail stuck with me. After Brandon left, Karen sat at her kitchen counter and opened my contact on her phone. The photo was me and Grace at Pelican Key 2 summers earlier, laughing with sand on our knees. Grace still had a missing front tooth. Karen's thumb hovered over the call button for 5 seconds. She could have called, asked, explained, chosen one honest sentence. She put the phone down. 3 days before check-in, on a Tuesday morning, the resort ran the remaining balance at 10:05. $2,580 to the card on file. Declined. Insufficient funds. An automated email went to Couldnt's inbox. Subject: Payment declined, action required. The message explained that the charge of $2,580 to the card ending in 4186 had failed. A new payment method had to be provided within 48 hours or the reservation would be canceled. The $900 deposit was non-refundable. Couldnt called Mom at 10:19. Hannah's card was declined. Mom sounded confused. That is what Ruth said later. Confused in the way people sound when the lie they agreed to suddenly stops working. The card is right here in my purse. Try it at the ATM, Couldnt snapped. So Mom drove to First Southern Bank on Main Street, parked crooked, went inside, inserted the card, and checked the balance. $18.47. She called Couldnt from the lobby. There's $18. The pause on the other end lasted long enough for Mom to check again. That's impossible, Couldnt said. She saves every month. Well, it isn't there. She moved it. Another pause. Then Couldnt said, I'm calling her. She did. I was at my desk entering a payment for a cat dental cleaning. I saw her name on my phone. Couldnt. I pressed decline, set the phone face down, and finished the entry. The column balanced on the first try. Couldnt had spent months arranging a vacation around money that did not belong to her. Now the clock was ticking, 48 hours. That afternoon, Couldnt opened her credit card app at her kitchen table. Limit, $3,500. Balance, $2,100. Available credit, $1,400. She needed $2,580. Even her available credit was judging her, which frankly seemed overdue. She called Brandon first. Can you lend me $1,200? He laughed, not cruelly, just honestly surprised. I don't have that lying around, ask your mom. So Couldnt asked Mom. Evelyn stared at the wall in her living room, the one with Dad's portrait still hanging above the TV. My savings are for emergencies. This is an emergency, Couldnt said. It's a vacation. But Mom went to the bank anyway. She withdrew $650 from the emergency account I had created for her. The teller asked if she wanted a check or cash. She chose cash, drove it to Couldnt's house, and handed it over in an envelope. Couldnt scraped $700 from her credit card, nearly the last of the available credit. She sent $1,350 through the resort portal. But $1,350 was not $2,580. She was still short $1,230, and the clock was down to 31 hours. She called me again while I was giving Owen a bath. His rubber shark sat on the tub edge, bubbles up to his chin. My phone lit up on the counter. Couldnt. I watched it ring. Then I watched it stop. 2 minutes later, a text arrived. I know you moved the money. We need to talk. I read it, set the phone down, and read Owen 3 chapters of a shark book. He fell asleep during the page about whale sharks. The next night at 8:45, headlights swept across my living room curtains. A car door slammed. I knew the knock before it came. Couldnt stood on my mat in leggings and a wrinkled t-shirt. Mascara smudged under one eye. She looked like she had not slept. I opened the door but did not step back. What did you do with the money? She demanded. She said it like someone asking about a missing family heirloom, not stolen access to a bank account. My money, it's in my account, just not the one you planned to steal from. Her chin jerked. Steal, Mom is an authorized user, that's not stealing. Then why didn't you ask me? Silence. The porch light buzzed. A moth threw itself at it because even insects make choices that look familiar. We need that money, Couldnt said. The kids are counting on it. Your kids, I said. Not mine. You made that clear. She shifted her weight and looked past me into the apartment as if checking whether guilt was available inside. Then her voice softened. I'm sorry about what I said. Can you help for Mom's sake? I let the apology hang there. It had the weight and reliability of a paper umbrella. You told my daughter she wasn't real family. We are done here. I stepped back, closed the door, and turned the deadbolt. The click was loud enough for her to hear. Through the window, I watched her stand there for several seconds. Then she kicked my welcome mat sideways, the one Grace had picked out with yellow letters, and walked to her car. At 9:12 the next morning, the clinic phone rang. The office line, not my cell. The display showed Mom's landline. She knew I would answer because a ringing vet clinic phone might mean someone's dog had swallowed a battery. Family manipulation, now with customer service routing. Hannah, can't you just put the money back for the family? I leaned back in my chair. Through the glass partition, I could see Dr. Lane examining a tabby with an ear infection. The cat looked calmer than I felt. Mom, you held my card like it was yours. You helped Karen plan a trip that excluded my children. That was Karen's idea, I just went along. That is the problem, you always just go along. Her breath caught. I didn't mean for it to go this far. But it did. She started crying. I know my mother's cries. There is the real one, quiet and uneven, and the performance one with sniffs placed at proper intervals. This was the second kind. I waited. I did not fill the silence. I did not apologize. I did not offer a solution. Old Hannah would have said she would see what she could do, then transferred $500 and felt sick for a week. Your father would be ashamed of you, she said. There it was. The card under the card, the old weapon. Dad told me to stop when helping started hurting, I said. I stopped. The line went dead. I put the receiver back, finished the vendor invoices, and fed the clinic cat her lunch at 3:30. Wet food, chicken flavor. She complained anyway because cats respect no emotional milestone. After work, I stopped at Green Mart for milk, bread, and bananas. In aisle 4, near the cereal, Ruth Coleman stood comparing 2 boxes of oatmeal like one of them had betrayed her. Hannah. She set both boxes down. I heard about the trip. I stopped my cart. Mom told you. Evelyn asked me to talk to you. I told her no. Ruth folded her arms, not aggressively, more like she was getting ready to say something true and wanted both feet planted. I was at Chloe's birthday. I saw Karen pull you into the kitchen. I saw your mother holding that card. Hannah, you don't owe them anything. I looked at the cereal boxes. Store brand, 2 for $6. I know. Your daddy would say the same. She said it simply. Ruth had known Dad for 30 years. They had served on the church building committee together. He had fixed her downstairs sink twice and refused payment both times. I nodded. Ruth squeezed my hand, quick and firm, like helping someone across a ditch. Then she picked the cheaper oatmeal and put it in her cart. Have a good summer, honey. That was all. No lecture. No reconciliation plan. Just a woman in a grocery store confirming I was not crazy, which is sometimes more useful than a sermon and usually less sticky. I drove home, sat in the car for a minute with the engine off, then went inside and told myself, pack tonight. Leave tomorrow. At 9:05, with the kids asleep, the apartment was quiet except for the refrigerator hum and the kitchen faucet I kept meaning to fix. I loaded the car in 4 trips. Cooler on the backseat floor. Turkey sandwiches wrapped in foil. Juice boxes. Grapes in a zip bag. String cheese for the road. Duffels in the trunk. Beach towels from the linen closet. Owen's shark goggles in a plastic bag on top so he would see them first. I checked the reservation again. Harborview Lodge, Room 8, Bayport Island. Check-in at 3 p.m. confirmation, number saved in my phone and written on a sticky note in my wallet because technology likes to fail right when humans decide to rely on it. I set my alarm for 5:00 and texted Dr. Lane that I was taking Friday off as planned. Her answer came back quickly. Have the best time, you deserve it. I locked the front door, poured a glass of lemonade Grace and I had made on Sunday and sat on the porch steps. The street was quiet. Mr. Peterson's porch light glowed across the road. A sprinkler clicked somewhere in the dark. It was the kind of silence that did not demand anything from me. There were 5 missed calls from Karen and 3 from Mom. I let them sit. I did not listen to the voicemails. I did not read the texts. The next morning I would drive toward the coast with the windows down, my kids singing badly to the radio, and none of those messages would be allowed in the car with us. I opened my wallet. Dad's letter was still folded behind my license. I did not need to read it again. I knew what it said. The next day at around 2:10 in the afternoon, 230 miles north of us, Karen's SUV pulled into the Harborfront Dunes Suites parking lot after a long drive. I pieced this part together from Ruth, from Mom weeks later, and from Chloe, who told Grace everything during a playdate in August. Mom was in the passenger seat, stiff from the ride. Chloe and Noah were in the back, faces pressed to the windows, already talking about the pool. Karen walked into the lobby with sunglasses on her head and a rolling suitcase behind her. The desk clerk was a woman in a blue shirt. She typed Karen's name, then typed it again and frowned. I show a remaining balance of $2,580. A partial payment of $1,350 came through yesterday, but full payment is required at check-in. The balance is $1,230. Karen pulled out her credit card, the one nearly at its limit, and slid it across the counter like confidence was legal tender. The clerk ran it. "I'm sorry, ma'am, declined." Karen stared at the screen as if numbers might become embarrassed and change. Mom sat in a lobby chair, hands folded in her lap. "I don't have more money," she said, mostly to herself. Chloe appeared at Karen's side. "Mom, where is our room?" "Not now, Chloe." Karen grabbed Mom by the arm and pulled her toward the hallway, past the brochure stand and a giant fake plant. "Call Hannah," she said. "Now." Mom pulled out her phone. Her hands were shaking, the real kind this time. She dialed me. We had arrived on Bayport Island at noon. Room 8 was small, clean, and smelled like salt and lemon cleaner. 2 beds, a kitchenette with a hot plate, a mini fridge, and a screen door opening to a narrow porch. Owen had his shoes off before I finished unloading. Grace was in her shell swimsuit with a towel over her shoulder, standing at the door like a tiny lifeguard with no patience for adult luggage. By 1:00, we were on the beach. Grace ran into the foam, laughing like the ocean had personally invited her. Owen dropped to his knees and started digging with total engineering confidence. I sat on the blanket with sun on my arms, whined off the water, and sand already in places sand should not be. This is it, I thought. This is the trip. My phone rang at 2:18. "Mom." I looked at the screen, then at Grace jumping over waves, then at Owen digging with his tongue caught between his teeth. I pressed decline. It rang again at 2:19, declined, again at 2:20, declined. Owen looked up, sand stuck to one eyebrow. "Mom, who keeps calling?" I slid the phone to the bottom of the beach bag, screen down. "Nobody important right now, let's look for dolphins." He dropped the shovel and ran toward the water. I followed. The phone kept buzzing in the bag. The ocean swallowed the sound. 24 calls in the next hour. I did not answer one. I was not angry in that moment. I was not trying to teach anybody a lesson. I was standing in the Atlantic holding my son's hand while he searched for dolphins. That mattered more than whatever was happening in a parking lot far away. Back at Harborfront Dunes Suites, 24 calls went unanswered. Mom later described the lobby scene to Ruth in enough detail to stock a courtroom. Karen lost control, not quiet anger, the kind that makes strangers stare and employees press buttons under desks. She turned on the clerk as if the woman had personally drained the bank account. "She did this on purpose," Karen shouted. "She moved the money because she is vindictive." The words bounced off the marble floor, the tall ceiling, and the watercolor paintings of shorebirds. The clerk kept her face neutral. "Ma'am, please lower your voice." Other families turned to look. A man in a golf shirt pulled his kids closer. A woman with a suitcase stopped near the elevators. Chloe stood by the fake plant crying quietly, the embarrassed kind of crying that happens when a child understands her parent is making a scene and cannot stop it. Noah tugged Mom's sleeve. "Grandma, I want to leave." I was not there. I was 230 miles south, building a lopsided sandcastle with a 6-year-old who called it a shark fort. But when Ruth told me what Karen screamed about me ruining everything, all I could hear was Karen at Sunday dinner, sliding her phone across the table and smirking. "You couldn't afford it anyway." The woman who told me I could not afford the trip was standing in a resort lobby with a maxed credit card. Unable to afford the vacation she had tried to charge to my account. Couldnt tried Brandon twice. No answer both times. The manager came out, a tall man in a navy blazer. "I have to ask you to step outside." They walked out through the automatic doors, past the valet stand into the parking lot. No rooms. $900 deposit gone. Credit card nearly maxed. Half a tank of gas. The parking lot was fresh black asphalt under a 94-degree sun. Heat lifted in waves. Mom lowered herself onto a concrete bench near the accessible spaces. She looked 10 years older than 63. Her purse sat on her lap. Inside was my old debit card, tied to $18.47, and her own wallet, now $650 lighter. "Who is paying for this?" she asked. Her voice was small, not angry, not accusing, just tired. Couldnt paced beside the SUV. "Hannah was supposed to." "Hannah did not agree to pay," Mom cut in. It was the first time anyone had told me Mom cut Couldnt off in years. Couldnt stopped. "I asked her. She said no. You told me she would never notice." Couldnt's mouth tightened. "You went along with it because you said I couldn't bring the kids if you didn't." There it was. Not in a courtroom, not in a family meeting, not in some therapist's office with neutral furniture. Just the truth, sweating in a resort parking lot while someone else's children splashed in a pool behind the fence. Chloe and Noah sat in the back of the SUV with the doors open. Mom had bought them crackers and sports drinks at a gas station on the way in. Chloe picked at hers. Noah did not eat. "I want to go home," Chloe said. Noah looked at Mom through the open door. "I want Aunt Hannah." Couldnt spun around. "Don't say her name." Noah flinched. Mom closed her eyes. Nobody moved for a full minute. The drive back took 4 hours. Mom told Ruth nobody spoke for the first hour. Just the highway, the tires, and the air conditioning set too cold because Couldnt was angry, and angry people love punishing everyone with temperature controls. Chloe sat behind Mom playing a game on Mom's phone. Noah slept with his head against the window, stuffed dinosaur under his chin. Somewhere past mile marker 112, Chloe stopped playing. She had opened a social app. She turned the phone toward Mom. "Grandma, Grace, and Owen are at the beach. Look." The photo was simple. Grace and Owen on Bayport Island, kneeling beside a crooked sandcastle. Owen's shark goggles were pushed onto his forehead. Grace was grinning with sandy arms and squinting in the sun. I had posted it an hour earlier. Caption: "Beach day with my 2 favorites." Mom stared at the screen. Her grandchildren were laughing at the beach without her. She handed the phone back without a word. 40 minutes later, Noah woke up and rubbed his eyes. "Mom, are Grace and Owen at the beach? Why couldn't we go with them?" The car went quiet again. I think about Couldnt's words in Mom's kitchen at Chloe's birthday. "Your kids aren't coming. Mine don't want them there." Now her own son was asking why he could not be with my children. Her words had made a cage, and somehow she still looked surprised to find herself inside it. Mom turned in her seat. "Couldnt, what have we done?" Couldnt gripped the wheel. "Don't start, Mom." At sunset on Bayport Island, the sky turned peach, then copper, then a deep gray purple that made the water look like metal. I sat on the blanket with my back against the low dune fence. Grace had fallen asleep with her head on my lap, damp hair stuck to her cheek. Owen was 20 feet away, still digging. The child had spent the entire day creating holes with different declared purposes. This one, he informed me, was a crab trap. No crab had been foolish enough to cooperate. I pulled out my phone. 24 missed calls from Mom, 16 from Couldnt, 4 voicemails. I played the first one. Mom's voice was rough and cracked. "Hannah, the trip fell apart. We drove all the way here and they won't let us check in. Couldnt is beside herself. The deposit is gone. Please call me back, please." It lasted 41 seconds. I put the phone back into the beach bag and zipped it shut. I did not call. I did not want them to suffer. I was not performing punishment. There was simply nothing I could say that would repair what they had done, and nothing they could say that would erase the planning behind it. "Mom, I found a shell." Owen ran toward me with his fist raised like a trophy. He opened his hand. It was a broken sand dollar, split unevenly, one half larger than the other. Is it still good if it's broken? I took it from him and ran my thumb over the rough edge. The best ones usually are, buddy. He grinned and ran back to the crab trap. I looked out at the ocean. Dad's letter was in my wallet. Take those babies to the beach. I did. Back home that night, Karen sat at her kitchen counter with a glass of wine she could not afford, staring at her phone. Chloe and Noah were asleep, exhausted from spending a whole day driving to nowhere and back. She called Brandon. He answered on the fourth ring. Your brilliant plan cost me $900 and a vacation, she said. He was quiet for a second. My plan. You booked a resort you couldn't pay for. You told me to use her card. I suggested it, you did it. Difference matters. There is no difference, Brandon. I didn't tell you to nearly max out your card on a boat dinner. Karen set the wine glass down hard enough to slosh. This is Hannah's fault. Brandon paused. The long kind of pause that means someone is about to be honest because they no longer care if it helps. Is it? He hung up. Karen sat alone in the kitchen. No resort. No vacation. No deposit. A credit card with almost no room left. $650 from Mom that she would either repay or pretend had never existed. Nobody left to blame who was willing to carry it for her. On the fridge was a photo from Pelican Key 2 years earlier. Chloe, Noah, Grace, and Owen, all 4 kids sandy and smiling. Karen turned it face down and finished her wine. We came home on Sunday sunburned, tired, and happy. On Monday morning, Owen told Dr. Lane about the dolphin before I even clocked in. In his version, it had surfaced close enough to touch his elbow, then his knee, then practically his nose. Dr. Lane listened like this was the most urgent briefing of her career. On Tuesday afternoon, Mom called. I sat in my car in the clinic parking lot, windows down, and answered. Can we talk? She asked. I want to apologize. I turned the key back so the radio went silent. You can talk, I'm listening. I shouldn't have let Karen decide. And the card? I didn't know she would charge that much. But you knew she was going to charge something. Silence. A crow landed on the dumpster across the lot, looked around like it had better judgment than most of my relatives, and flew off. Mom, I love you. But from now on, my finances are mine. No shared accounts. No cards at your house. No emergency access. If you want to see Grace and Owen, you are welcome any Sunday. But I am not funding plans that exclude us. Her breathing was shallow, not crying, processing. Okay, she said quietly, not happy, not defensive, just hearing me maybe for the first time. And Mom, I'm not angry, I'm done being the wallet. She let that sit. I understand, she said. I do not think she fully did, but understanding is not a switch. It is slower than that. We said goodbye. I went back inside, fed the clinic cat, finished the monthly report, and picked up my kids at 5:20 like always. Karen did not call. Not that week, not the next. 2 weeks of silence, which was an answer wearing different shoes. Mom mentioned it on a Wednesday. Karen says she'll never forgive you for ruining the vacation. I was folding laundry with the phone on speaker. Owen was lining toy cars across the coffee table. She will have to forgive herself first, I said. Mom did not answer. 3 weeks after Seabrook Point, there was a town potluck at the community center. Folding tables, paper plates, pulled pork, coleslaw, and enough casseroles to make every regional cookbook nervous. I walked in with Grace, Owen, and a bowl of potato salad. Karen stood near the dessert table. We made eye contact. Hers slid away first. I got in the food line. That was it. No courtroom speech. No dramatic confrontation. Life is rarely kind enough to provide a clean stage and good lighting. Sometimes you just stand across a room from someone and let the silence do its job. Chloe broke away from Karen's table and ran to me. Aunt Hannah, can Grace come play? She was 11, and whatever Karen had tried to teach her about real family had not settled where Karen wanted it. Anytime, sweetheart. Chloe grabbed Grace's hand and they ran toward the playground. Owen chased after them with Noah close behind. Karen watched from across the room. She said nothing. Before dessert was served, she gathered her things and left. I stayed. I ate potato salad, talked to Ruth about the leak in Dr. Lane's clinic roof, drove home, gave Owen a bath, read Grace 2 chapters, and put my kids to bed. That was the last thing I did that night. Lock the front door, check my wallet for Dad's letter, and turn off the lights in a home nobody else had the key to anymore.